I'm joined by psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Lucy, thank you so much for joining us this evening. First of all, what is AI psychosis, and is it recognized by mental health experts?
No, or perhaps I should say not yet, because I think the world is shifting so dramatically that we might have to think about incorporating some kind of acknowledgement that using things like AI and other altered reality states can actually trigger an emotional response in people very similar to the psychosis that we're more familiar with, which can be induced, for example, by taking drugs or from other conditions like schizophrenia. But what is really being talked about here is the way in which users of AI, which of course is a fabrication of reality, a distortion of reality, can end up thinking that the reality is the thing that's happening in their relationship with the AI. Now, it could be that you're making a movie with AI. It could be that you're using AI for therapy. We know that there are bots and apps that people can link into to get AI. Or you might just be using it as ChatGPT and other forms of AI just to get a little bit of information. But you start to go down a rabbit hole of thinking that this is real. And before you know it, perhaps your whole reasoning, your life choices, and your own mental health can actually unravel.
It's pretty frightening, actually, just what you're outlining there, Lucy. But who would be susceptible to this? Is it everyone, or is it just certain victims?
Well, the problem is at the moment we don't know. We don't have enough research as to the impact on people's well-being and sense of reality when they're using altered states of reality. We think about using, let's say again, ChatGPT to answer a question or to help us when we're writing something. But we might get so sucked into that relationship, we might get so sucked into our attachment to the fact that this person is responding to us and they're always very positive and they're always very validating, that we can start to imagine that this is a real relationship. Now, I have gone on air in the last, I'd say, 12 months to talk about my concerns around AI therapy apps, for example, because again, I don't think they're rigorous enough. I don't think they're challenging enough. They're a little bit like a parent that if you could imagine that a toddler would say, not that a toddler could ever say this, but imagine that a toddler would turn around to its parents and say, you know what, I don't like this trying to walk thing. I think I'll just stay crawling for the rest of my life. All parents at that point would say, no, honestly, life is going to be better for you if you learn to walk. But ChatGPT doesn't do that. ChatGPT says, gosh, that's a great idea. Yes, I think you ought to run with that. And therefore, we don't know who is going to be susceptible to thinking that this relationship, this incredibly positive and very unbounded relationship, is going to be helpful to them or a hindrance. We just don't have the research on it yet.
And what's interesting, Lucy, pretty much AI has become parts of our lives in everything that we do. And I think that's quite scary even for me, because my technology skills aren't that great. But you talked about, you know, people going to have therapy online and people seeking advice. But the answer is, what are the big companies doing? What are the big tech companies doing? What's the answer here, if there is one?
Well, it's a little bit like criticizing people who make alcohol. Alcohol in and of itself isn't a bad thing. It's just people who abuse it or misuse it that end up compromising their capacity to function. Similarly with AI, the more we get to know about it, the more we can utilize it very easily and very healthily into our lives. It's when it gets out of balance and when it becomes very distorted. I'm thinking, for example, about increasingly the number of people who are eschewing life partners. They don't want to go on dates. They don't even want to socialize with other people because they're quite happy having evening conversations with an AI app. the AI app is very friendly, very warm, always gives you a pep talk at the end of it, always says, well, actually, if you want to come back and carry on this conversation tomorrow, I will be here for you. They're almost like the perfect relationship. And yet it isn't a real thing. It's this distortion of reality. And the manufacturers of AI and the tech companies that are really pushing the boundaries on this, it's very hard to see how they themselves are responsible for the way that human beings are going to interact with it. Personal responsibility should always trump anything else in terms of governments trying to wade in and legislate, and AI companies feeling that they need to be fined if certain things happen. It's not their fault if human beings behave irresponsibly.
And just a quick thought before I do have to end the conversation. What are the signs that people are going down this slippery slope and they're entering this AI psychosis? And what can actually be done for them?
But it takes quite a lot of self-awareness, because you need to be alert for the fact that you're not actually engaging with anyone else, perhaps not checking in with other human beings, you're not really forging relationships with real people, that you're spending too much time online and you're spending too much time in this virtual bubble that you have created with this app or with this sort of tech system. But that requires a lot of self-awareness. That in a way, what you really need is people around you saying, don't you think you're spending a bit too much time on that chatbot? But you might not have people in your life to do that, which is one of the reasons why you're spending so much time chatting with the chatbot. So it's very hard to see how, without external references around you, you're going to be able to do it yourself. But if you can, if you're listening to this interview that you and I, Leanne, are giving each other, if there's someone listening thinking, actually, yeah, I probably do spend 2 or 3 hours now. I'm not socializing in real life. I've lost all my friends. I don't really communicate with my family. I'm just quite happy because I have social anxiety or I'm nervous about dating. That's the alarm bell that maybe this interview could be the moment where 1 or 2 people think, you know what, maybe I need to quit this and start engaging with the real world for once.
Lucy Beresford, very good advice there. And as we all know, sadly, not all relationships are perfect. Thank you so much for joining us.